Thank you very much to Chief Jake Edwards for that amazing presentation. Our next speaker is Professor Philip Arnold from Syracuse University, and also a part of the new network. I'd like to share with you one thing that he probably won't mention, but he and his wife Sandy, who is here, have twin sons that play lacrosse and have been since they were little guys, and great fans of the Iroquois Nationals lacrosse team. Our delegation put together a little briefing packet on the lacrosse team because the next tournament is going to be held this July in Finland. And we presented it to the permanent representative of Finland yesterday, just to let them know that we'll be coming, that we would like to do a cultural exchange with their indigenous youth, the Sami youth. And the response was very, very positive. And those of you who will be continuing your work across the street, you may want to go up to the representative sitting at the Finland desk and mention to them that you too are looking forward to this tournament of lacrosse in Finland with a team, the Iroquois Nationals, that are rated #2 in the world. With that, Professor Philip Arnold.
Thank you, Tanya. I have to acknowledge Tanya's continuing work here at the United Nations on behalf of Indigenous peoples over many decades now. And although she wouldn't mention it, she is the force behind putting together this panel today. And several other panels in previous years, so I want to thank her for that too. We acknowledge that Indigenous peoples have traveled a very long distance over a great period of time, trudging through insurmountable obstacles to finally deliver their urgent messages to the UN. Thank you for your perseverance in upholding your responsibility to creation, and thank you for working with the allied groups who, through a better understanding, can join in a united effort to help raise awareness of these critical issues in our time. I'm Phil Arnold, a faculty member of the Religion Department and Director of Native American Studies at Syracuse University. We are located in upstate New York, as you've heard, in Onondaga Nation territory, the heartland of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We are fortunate, too, to have a Chancellor, Nancy Cantor, as our leader at SU, who has been nearly single-handedly responsible for supporting the collaborative work with the Onondaga Nation for the last 8 years. Since the early 80s, I have been studying and writing about the role that religion has taken in the colonization of the Americas. And I have been teaching and organizing conferences on this topic since 1990. It was not until 2005, however, when in this very room, my wife Sandy Bigtree and I attended the 4th UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and I understood the significance of the doctrine of discovery. Speaking that day were Tanya Ganella Fritchner, Steve Newcomb, Virgil Kilstraight, Alex Whiteplume, and Oren Lyons. They clarified the phenomenon of colonialism as having been justified by a series of specific Christian decrees articulated by 15th century popes in a series of letters called papal bulls. Justice John Marshall codified these racist religious ideas into the foundational tenets of U.S. federal law as the doctrine of discovery. These doctrines have underlie the atrocities and injustices perpetrated against Indigenous peoples throughout the world. But when the doctrine was again referenced as recently as 2005 in the Oneida land claim, I and Mary McDonald, my colleague at Lemoyne, felt the urgent need to organize the Doctrine of Discovery study group. It is composed of academics, activists, community people, and Indigenous peoples. It is an educational resource providing access to reading materials, current development updates, and local event listings. Although we started local, our listserv has quickly expanded to now include people from all over the world. If you would like to join the list, please sign the sheet on the table in the back. Also, you can sign up to be part of the noon listserv as well. We are fortunate to be living in Onondaga Nation territory because of the rich historical influence this community has had upon the world. We consider ourselves allies of the Onondaga Nation and support their efforts to educate the public. Over the years, we have sponsored talks at SU and in our area by Tanya Ganella-Fritchner, Warren Lyons, Steve Newcomb, Robert Miller, Andrea Smith, Kevin Annett, Susan Schoen-Harjo, Lance Henson, Tia Oros, Chris Peters, Walter Eckelhoff, Robert Spiegelman, and John Diefenbacher-Kroll. Also, we have spoken to religious groups in our area and given talks at meetings, like the Parliament of World Religions meeting in Melbourne, Australia, as well as meetings in Montreal and San Francisco of the American Academy of Religion. I have found out that very few people know about the Doctrine of Discovery. Most particularly people who study religion or who consider themselves religious. I don't think anyone can fully appreciate the subtlety of the racism embedded in the dogma of our histories, religions, and preconceived notions of each other, or even understandings of ourselves and our relationship with the earth, until you become an ally. It changes the way we understand the world, which unfortunately challenges our colleagues, friends, and even family. But in order for us to effectively push against the racist doctrines, that we must educate the people who are oblivious to the racism. As Andy and Jake have said, in Noon and the DOD group, we take the two-row wampum as our model. Educating white people about the Doctrine of Discovery is the work we do on our side of the river of life, but in collaboration and coordination with the leadership of the Onondaga and the Haudenosaunee. But this is oftentimes difficult to do, and I want to indicate the depth of the difficulty and some educational strategies. First, the Doctrine of Discovery grew out of medieval Christianity as a worldview that materially benefited a European hierarchical structure. Kings, queens, popes, and bishops were the ones towards which flowed all worldly goods for the good of propagating the church's work, or so the story goes. As this activity of conquest developed into colonialism around the world, it justified the superiority of Christianity over other religions, most especially indigenous traditions, which were characterized as pagan or heretical. The narrative of civilization over and against the primitive is the legacy of the Doctrine of Discovery. This religious cultural worldview justified the rise of colonial outposts, of European empires, and eventually the rise of the current nation state. It is the mythic foundation upon which current modern states reside. It was built to benefit white people of European ancestry, like me, and like the people I teach. In many ways, the doctrine of discovery constitutes the identity of whiteness as a phenomenon of people who long ago left their homelands to live and dominate someone else's. This is just to indicate the scale of what we're involved with when trying to convince white people about the doctrine of discovery. It is often perceived as an attack on the mythology that has determined who they are and how they have come to be here. The doctrine of discovery was built for white people. And now we have to convince them that it is a lie. I want to share two ways to do this. First, I attribute this to John Diefenbacher-Krall, who developed a way of talking about this when he crafted the Episcopalian resolution to repudiate the doctrine of discovery in 2009. That resolution said that the doctrine of discovery was fundamentally opposed to the genuine message of Jesus Christ. This is also reflected in the recent World Council of Churches resolution. When speaking with Christian groups, I've noticed that this resonates with Christians. They are very often concerned about the state of their church and want to see themselves reflecting the values of Jesus Christ. Of course, the history of Christianity is one of bloodshed, conflict, and conquest, but contemporary Christians generally do not see themselves this way. In other words, pushing against the doctrine of discovery can be seen as a way to reform the church from their point of view. There's a lot of work to do in this regard. Is the theology of Christianity based on a message of love and regard for the world, as in Jesus' life, as described in the Gospels? Or is it one based on religious intolerance for other traditions and conquest and missionization, as expressed in the doctrine of Christian discovery? This is a question for Christians who are concerned about the soul of their religion. Second, young people are concerned about the future. They see that the world that they are entering is not viable and are looking around for different ways of living. Oftentimes in their search, they find indigenous peoples and their traditions as offering them an alternative. Students are often compelled by indigenous spirituality and try to take it on as their own. This can become a problem because it is often adopted as New Age spirituality. But I take seriously their search because in many ways it's genuine. We can introduce them to the doctrine of discovery in the context of their spiritual search. Our future survival on Mother Earth is going to require us to teach white people a new set of values, indigenous values, value change for survival. The doctrine of discovery are a set of values based on human conquest and domination of the natural world and its peoples. The coming generations need to know that in order to adopt indigenous values, we have to understand the doctrine of discovery as their opposite. To educate white people about the doctrine of discovery and to get them to be critical of the dominating mythology of Columbus, for example, they have to see that it is not their own best interest. That their survival is predicated on holding fast to another set of values than the ones that civilization has taught them. Their survival is contingent on the survival of Mother Earth. It is not a small task to educate people about the doctrine of discovery. It is necessary, however, if we are to advocate for indigenous people's survival. There are ways to do this even among people who are hostile to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, for example. I'd like for you to share some of the ways that you have come to do this. Thank you.